up your engine. Here's an 07 RX350 Lexus. I'm checking it out to see if a customer's going to buy it. Okay, it's an 07. So, it's what? 14 years old. Most people think it's too old, but really, my wife's is 19 years old and still shines and runs like a clock. Check it out. The wheels are still clean. It's got Michelin tires on it. Paint is fantastic shape. The lenses are still in great shape. Ooh, but it only has single exhaust. It doesn't have the modern dual exhaust. What a shame. Now, age isn't everything on a Lexus. As you can see inside here, for its age, this baby's low mileage. It's only got 103,000 miles on it. And that's nothing for one of these. I've seen them with 350 and they're still going strong. The wood grain is still in good shape. The steering wheel still looks beautiful. It's got the old sunroof, just about everything you can possibly think of. Now, since it's so old, it doesn't have any kind of display. It just has this. There's no kind of a fancy display on the thing, and if you look closely, it's still got a slot for CDs. My wife's had the first CD in hers, is 2002, but it still has a tape deck because business people were using tapes for business meetings, so they left a tape deck and a CD player and a radio. It was a great system. It still sounds fantastic, but you know, there's no kind of display or anything on it. And of course, it's a Lexus, so everything still works. We turn on the steering, and what happens? Steering moves out to where you have it set. It has various settings, and when you're done, hey, you don't want the steering wheel in the way. So it moves back to give you more room to egress from the vehicle. And as we check the back seat, leather's still in excellent shape, just like my wife's car. It's got AC and heat ducts in the back. Of course, it's got a lot of room in the trunk, too. It's not automatic. Oh, ooh. Look, it's still pretty clean. It's got the old hide all your crap so nobody can see it in it. Everybody wants that. Still in excellent shape as old as it is. Now this one wasn't built in Japan like a lot of them, but it was made in Canada. Cambridge, Ontario, the same as my Matrix. Now there's two things Canadians know how to do. It's play hockey and make cars. Second car I ever had was a Maverick, Ford Maverick, made in Oakville, Ontario. I beat the heck out of that car, paid $500, and I sold it for $500 like 10 years later. It was a great car. Canadians also know how to drink beer, but that's another story. I lived up there for 4 years in Toronto. So let's get back to this Lexus. Check under the hood. And what does it have? It has the venerable Toyota V6 engines. These things can run forever with very minor maintenance. And you can see they've waxed even the battery. That's an old trick. They wax cars to make them look shiny, but I mean, I don't care about that. All I care about is, does it leak? And when we look under the car, nothing's leaking. The engine itself has 270 horsepower, and it's got a venerable 5-speed automatic Toyota Aisin transmission that can last forever. We'll take it for a spin and check it out. Power door locks still work, and we'll start her up. Typical Toyota, starts right up. Still has freezing cold air conditioning. Now it doesn't have a backup camera because it's too old, but you can always add one on. They aren't that expensive. Still as smooth as old as it is. Stops on a dime. Now it's not particularly a race car, but you see as we step on the gas, well, it's spinning the tires. You can hear that transmission. It shifts like a dream. It actually is kind of a race car. This one's still got a lot of guts left in it. But the main thing is it's very smooth riding. It's high enough off the ground that you got a lot of clearance if it's raining, but not too high so that you get that feeling that you're up on stilts like in a big raised 4x4. And speaking of 4x4, this is just the front wheel drive. This isn't all-wheel drive. Most people do not need 4-wheel drive in an SUV. This works perfectly fine, and when you put it in the snow mode, you can drive it in the snow to your heart's content. And as I said, it might be old. Back in those days, Lexus made leather seats. Look at these seats. They're still in immaculate shape. But you know, old Scotty doesn't trust anybody, so I'm getting my all-tall scanner. We're going to scan the whole thing, check out everything. We're plugging it in and turning it on. It gives us all the information. Got a memory seat. Boy, they sure asked you a lot of questions. Here we go, RX350. Got all the information. We'll go through the total diagnosis. It takes a little while. Auto scan. And while we're waiting, I'll check all the windows. I'm sure they work. They always do in Lexuses, but you never know. Maybe the car was wrecked or something. No, they all work perfectly fine. It's an older car, so the diagnosis system is much slower. As you can see, it's only gone 5, now it's 10%. It might take a good 10-15 minutes for him to do the whole scan. But it's worth it because it gives so much information. We'll see what the trouble code is. It's only got one. Okay, it's got the code C1290, 0 point of steering sensor. That means that the steering sensor has to be recentered. Any good mechanic with Lexus computers can do that. Certainly not a deal breaker. Now I'm going to check live data, which is the most important thing. It gives me so much information. And here we go, pages of information. What we're looking for is orange stuff. I look at the information too, but basically we're looking for any orange data which shows that there's a problem. Everything's normal so far. That's the ABS system. So now we're going to go back to the engine system, which has even more data. Looking for bad data that's orange, but I'm going to be analyzing in my head everything that I see. So far it looks decent. It's running a little bit lean. It's adding a little bit of fuel, but that's typical as they age. And this said on a used car lot, if you clean the fuel injectors, it'll probably run quite a bit better, even though it's running relatively perfect now. You can see the oxygen ratio here. It's perfect as 1 there. Now it's 1.0051. It's almost perfect for a car this old. It's really running good, and I don't see any oranges, meaning the data is skewed and there's a serious problem. I give it high passing grades. It's in excellent shape. Now it's going for like $9,800. Price is whatever anybody's going to agree upon. Odds are it's not going to be easy to find one this clean and this excellent shape. And when you consider that a brand new 2020 RX350 starts at about $44,000, $9,800 for this is sounding better all the time. And here's some bonus questions and answers. JDM Kid says, Scotty, is a used Lexus ISF a reliable car to buy? If it was maintained, yes. And if it wasn't wrecked, flooded, or stolen. As I always say, trust no one when you're buying a used car, especially when you're buying a used, more expensive car. Do research. Always, always. If a guy like me, check it out before you put any money down, because you can't trust anybody except for a good mechanic who is neutral on the deal. I'm neutral. I work on all kinds of cars. And I tell customers maybe their dream car, I tell them it's a piece of junk if it's a piece of junk. Hey, I met a customer the other day who was looking at an old used Mercedes. I said, go ahead and buy it, because for $3,000, hey, you're buying an $80,000 car originally for $3,000 and it still runs and goes. So even the AC still blew cold. So what the heck, you know, I'm honest about it. But you do have to get it checked out, because you can't trust anybody when it comes to selling used cars. You don't know any history about it. You don't know what's going on. Pay a good mechanic to check it out. And then you haggle over the price when it's all done. But they're good cars if they're taken care of, but don't trust anybody. You know, I've even had customers buy cars that were theoretically brand new, only to find out that no, they weren't. And the dealer just had some fishy deal where something was flooded out somewhere. Then they shipped it to another state, sold it as a new car, but it had been flooded out previously. So you always want to check them out. Grizzly Goat says, what do you think about liquid moly? I see they have a lot of products out there. You know, is it real? What is it? Is it worth using? They sell both oil additives and oil that already have the additives put in. Now, the moly they're referring to is molybdenum bisulfate, which is actually a very good lubricant. The Germans used it in their fighter planes in World War II. It's a very good lubricant. Now, the thing is, all modern oils are pretty well made. You use any kind of oil, you normally don't need to put additives in them anymore anyway. From what I have tried myself and people I know, the liquid moly is a decent oil like any other oil that's out there. I can't say I'd go out of my way and buy the stuff with saying, oh, well, it's got molybdenum bisulfate. Well, lots of them have all kinds of different additives in them too. And the actual amount of additives they put in generally aren't all that much. Because to take an analogy of gasoline, most places, there's only one real big refinery around. So one company will refine the gasoline, then the other companies will buy that gasoline and then put in their additive package and sell it at their gas stations. So basically, all the gasoline's almost exactly the same in most areas, except for a tiny amount of additives that they throw in. And believe me, they won't tell anybody. I've asked guys that I know at big companies like Shell, they're not going to tell me what additives they put in. That's their trade secret. The trade secret is probably they probably don't put much in them at all. And the same thing with that, you know, a lot of it's just a gimmicky thing that's selling. Now, for ages, there have been various companies that tried molybdenum bisulfate as an additive. The only problem is it's kind of blackish, and the oil looks dirty sooner with a lot of these things. And so a lot of people didn't buy them because they said, oh, my oil looks black. Well, because it's black to begin with, a lot of times it'll be black from the molybdenum bisulfate, which is dark, so it'll make the oil look dark. And that confused people. They'd have to go by the mileage, of course, but they look at the black and they think it's dirty. So in some companies, it was a failure because it was too dark looking oil. People don't want to get oil that looks dark. It's just not a good sales technique, even if it works okay. So me, I wouldn't waste my money on that stuff. A lot of it is just sales technique. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.